Okay, this is Chapter 1 review for economics at Notre Dame High School. This is Mr. Shea. Just start out with a picture here with symbolizing, obviously, with the pillars, capitalism, and what makes up the cornerstones of a free enterprise system: private enterprise, competition, private property, profit motive, and consumer sovereignty. It's what makes all these companies, and I put the Mets and Yankees in there as well because they are companies, able to operate at their own free will and allows consumers to purchase or buy tickets, attend games. We're talking about sports teams uh, based on their demand and their choice. So, scarcity is the cornerstone of economics, and countries have three major resources: land, labor, and capital. Okay, these are the cornerstones, is what makes up scarcity, is what people are looking for to fill unlimited wants. Okay, so the definition, I'll just read off the screen here 1 second. The study of how society chooses to use its scarce resources for the production of goods and services to satisfy unlimited wants. So a country has to make choices, or society has to make choices. Do you want a car? Do you want a boat? A jet? If you're Richard Branson, that's a picture of his spaceship. That plane actually goes into space. So a society is trying to deal with the desire, these unlimited wants, and they have to make decisions. Now, in order for Richard Branson to build this spaceship, he had to sell Virgin Records. He still has Virgin Airlines, but he had a much more massive empire of products and different types of companies, and he had to sell some of those. So even for the very wealthy, the definition of scarcity applies, and they have to make decisions. Okay, so macro versus micro. You look at the first graph. Here is a graph that's dealing with several countries, a very macro look into see the United States prominently there, and all the way down the line to these countries' economies. So you're dealing with macro numbers like unemployment or let's see, healthcare, or whatever you could think of on a macro scale, GDP. These are all examples of macroeconomics. When we're talking about micro, we're dealing at a much smaller scale. So even though Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks are two very big companies that make a lot of money, it's still microeconomics if you're studying the two and how they compete against each other and the products that they produce. So again, let's review the principles of free enterprise are private property rights, the right to own private property. Profit motive, that's companies want to make a profit, they want to do better, and that should promote better products. It should promote pricing that is reasonable based on the product that they're selling. And competition, which opens the doors. We talked about monopolies and how the United States government stepped in to stop Microsoft from their software platform, requiring the download of their Internet Explorer and not allowing for others. So competition is good for a market, it's good for consumers, it's good for innovation. Consumer sovereignty, that the consumer has the ability to choose. The consumer has the ability to choose based on price, based on quality, just based on desire of that individual. Okay, so what are the goals? Economic freedom, economic efficiency, economic security, economic equity, full employment and stable prices, and economic growth. Now, not all of these are possible all the time. We know that economic security, for example, we deal with fraud all the time. A lot of our platforms are digitized at this point, so they might be vulnerable. That's why we have so many protections in place. When we look at full employment and stable prices, that's not always the case. We're over 6% now unemployment, so full employment is very difficult to achieve. But it's a goal of free enterprise. And growth. You want to see growth in a free enterprise system. You want to see the country grow. And we grow in the United States around 2 or 3%, which is a pretty stable economy. It's a healthy economy. It's not a rapidly growing economy like we were in the early 1900s when we were growing in double digits, but it's still a sound economy. Okay, so what are our three fundamental economic questions? And this goes into the who are we making it for, what are we making, who are we making it for, and how are we making it if you're a corporation. Okay, so what products are you going to produce? If you're Apple, if you're a video game company, we will stay in technology. Are you going to make iPads? You're going to make video consoles? You're going to make video games? You're going to make earplugs? You're going to make cases? Are you going to make fake iPhones? That's up to you or the corporation. They have to answer that question. What products are they going to produce? That's going to also come down to what products are demanded by the population. How will the products be produced? Are they going to be produced in your native country? They're going to export the labor so that it's cheaper to produce it. Are you going to use machinery to produce it? Are you going to use workers? Is it a skilled job to produce your goods, or is it fairly easy to assemble things and require unskilled labor, which would be cheaper? That's Todd Hoffman. If you never watched The Gold Rush, it's a great show. He never finds gold really, but it's still pretty fun to watch. And then for whom? Who are you going to make this for? The Apple, the iPhone 5C. Okay, we know. We've talked about that. Are you making a product that has the ability to sell in your target market? So if your target market has a very low income level, you can't sell a product that's not a need product, it's a want product, and you can't make that product too expensive. You've got to make it affordable. Or you want to sell your product at the price you have to sell it at, so you have to determine who you're going to market to, and so now the whom is determined by income, by demographic questions that have to be answered, and location. Okay, economic systems, three basic types. You guys did a class project on this. Traditional, market, and command. You gave an example of each one. Traditional, things don't change too much. Things stay the same. Traditions are passed on through generation. A lot of times these type of economies are self-sufficient economies. An example of that are the Amish. They'd be a good example of a traditional economy. You're not going to have much innovation here because you don't have competition. You just have a society that is happy with the way things are and does not want to change. So that group or society continues in their traditional economy. A market economy, what we have here in the United States, has the intention is to have limited government. Watching the video that we've watched, sometimes the government could be too limited, too hands-off with a lack of regulation. Sometimes the government could be too hands-on with too much regulation. So the government has to find that perfect balance. Competition, we've discussed already, is important for the consumer. Adam Smith called in capitalism, there's an invisible hand that things will work themselves out and in capitalism. So supply and demand will work itself out. Prices will work itself out. Competition will work itself out. For the most part, that's true, but sometimes there does require some integration, some intervention by the government. And a command economy. Here we're looking, whether it's socialism or communism. Karl Marx was the brainchild behind communism. You're looking at Kim Jong-un, the second, I believe, really brutal dictator in North Korea. A command economy. The government has control. There's a difference between socialism and communism. Socialism, the government's going to traditionally control natural resources, communications, travel. And probably press, but there's still the ability for individuals to advance themselves and get better jobs and make more money, and there's the opportunity for private enterprise outside of those government-controlled areas. In communism, everybody is working towards the same goal for the common good, and everybody shares equally in that. So there's not as much innovation, there's not a motivation to do better, there's not a desire to make more money. Everybody's going to be in their station. You could have a mixed economy. China, I say mixed maybe because it's it lists itself as a communist society, but it's more socialistic. So maybe it's just more socialism. Maybe it still is more of a command economy. But if you think, how can we have a mixed economy? Well, I'll let you guys try to think of a combination there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I would probably say China would be my best example. I guess you'd have to go into specific segments of different countries to find an area where you could find a great example. So I kind of dropped the ball on that one, but China was my best one. Okay, guys, that's it for the review of Chapter 1. Good luck tomorrow.